Hi, I'm Jo, and this is a YA Escapist fantasy book haul because we could all use a little escape right now. Whether you need some quiet time, some self-care time, or you're just in the mood for a new read, we have got a great little collection to go through today, so let's jump right in. First up, we have the Hero Maker duology by Kendare Blake, and these do fall into the YA romantasy category. In this world, there's an order of mythical female warriors called the Aristine, and our female main character, Reed's goal is to become one. She was orphaned, and the Aristine took her in, so becoming one feels like the natural pathway for her. Now, the interesting thing about the Aristine, though, is they're not guiding themselves into victory. That's not their main purpose. Their main purpose is actually to do that for others. And it seems like where this story starts, Reed is actually an initiate, so she's on her way and she's progressing towards becoming an Aristine, but there's one final thing she has to do before she's an official member. And that is, of course, leading her first hero into victory, and the stakes are high here because if she succeeds, then that's great, that's her dream fulfilled. But if she doesn't, she not only has to leave that dream behind, but she also has to leave behind the only home she's really ever known. When she meets the hero she's been assigned to, it's less than ideal because they definitely do clash. His name is Hestian, but it seems like they maybe figure out a way to work together, or at least try to, and I definitely get the vibe that this is maybe like an enemies to reluctant partners to lovers type of vibe. And as this challenge progresses, Reed definitely begins to learn more about the Order's secrets and what it really means to join them, and really what it will cost to join them. So it'll be up to her to decide whether she's going to forge on with this path that she has found herself destined to walk, or if she's going to end up having to choose something else for herself, and maybe something else for Hestian. Now, we do also have the second book in that duology. This one is called Warrior of Legend. Obsessed with the cover on this one. And it is pretty new. This was only released back in October. So there's no need to wait, which is fantastic, especially if the first book ends up being left on a cliffhanger, which often with duologies and series, that is the case. So no worries about that. And it does seem like this one starts right where the first one left off, which is fantastic. And we get to learn more about Reed's decision and what that cost her and what her path looks like going forward. And of course, we are going to get more of Reed and Hestian and their potentially tumultuous relationship. Legend of the White Snake by Shirley is a standalone YA romantasy, and it is marketed as a retelling of a Chinese folktale. Now, I'm not familiar with the original folktale, but I am super excited to look into it as soon as I have finished this one because I don't want to spoil anything for myself. But if you are familiar with it, then that is a bonus as far as selling points go. I do really love with retellings that we get to watch authors use their imagination and their skill sets to really craft something that's already been created into something that's entirely their own. Plus, I'm excited to say we do get some extra representation with this one because both of our leads are part of the LGBT community. So we do meet a prince in this one, and his mother was bitten by a snake, which did cause her a really slow and painful death, but he hears about a cure. Now, the twist here is that the cure is actually an antidote that can only be found within the snake. It's something like a little pearl. And the prince visits an oracle. This oracle tells him that he can find this antidote within this snake in a city, and so the prince takes off to the city to find that. So he ends up heading to the city, and he meets this stable boy that he finds himself completely infatuated with. But there's another twist, and the twist is that this stable boy is the snake. And if that's all just in the synopsis, I can't wait to figure out what else this book has in store for me. I need to know, like, do they fall in love? Do they find the cure? Do they give it to other people? Do other people even need the cure? Has anyone else even been bitten by the snake? And if they haven't, then why is that? Anyway, this is definitely at the top of my TBR because I have lots of questions that I'm hoping are answered. Our next book is one that takes place in medieval Wales. This is a standalone YA romantasy, and it is called The Hedge of Foxhall by Anna Bright. I've heard a lot of really good things about this one, and the cover definitely intrigues me, so I knew that I had to read it for myself. Fionn is our lead main character, and she is a hedge witch, so that means that she can use magic, but it has to be taken from nature. So because of that, she only uses as much as nature itself can really spare. On the flip side, there is a bigger Foxhall coven that doesn't really seem to blink an eye at decimating huge pieces of nature like forests to really fuel their magic. But regardless of who exactly is using the magic and how they're going about getting it, it is fading for everyone, and this is likely because of a really big wall that this enemy kingdom has built. Then we have Prince Taliesin, who for some reason hates magic and just wants to be rid of it altogether, does not want it in his kingdom, but unfortunately for him, for some reason yet to be revealed, the king, his father, sends him on this mission to tear down that giant wall that is preventing magic from being in their kingdom. And the real catch here is that not only is he set out on this mission, but so is his brother, and whoever succeeds in tearing down this wall gets to become king. So he very begrudgingly seeks out Fionn, the last hedge witch of Foxhall, to help him complete this task so that he can eventually become king. But as the story progresses, our prince realizes that he's not just in a competition with his brother to become the next king, but he's also in a competition with his brother for Fionn's heart. And as if that doesn't sound enticing enough, the synopsis of this one does mention that if you enjoyed Alison Sapp's A Dark and Drowning Tide, which was huge this year, you'll probably like this one, so I'm excited to see how this turns out. Next up, we have Spectacular by Stephanie Garber, and if that name sounds familiar, it's because this is book 3.5 in her iconic Caraval series. And equally as iconic is her Once Upon a Broken Heart series, which is a spin-off of the Caraval series, and both fall under the YA romantasy category. Now, Once Upon a Broken Heart is a personal favorite of mine, but I do recommend reading the Caraval series first just to avoid any spoilers that occur in Once Upon a Broken Heart, because it does happen after. And if you haven't read the Caraval series yet, this is a perfect time to start because Spectacular is out now, and this is a cute little holiday novella. So we're still with our two female main characters, Scarlett and Donatella. They are twins. And it seems like they're really excited about the holiday season, and they are prepping the perfect event and finding all of the perfect gifts. And the two male main characters are Julian and Legend, and I can't tell which one, but it seems like at least one of them is not nearly as excited about the holiday season as Scarlett and Tella. And this is actually also illustrated by Rosie Fowinkle. The world of Caraval is so whimsical and magical that I feel like illustrating this is a fantastic way to just get the reader more immersed in that world. So if you're looking for a cute, short, cozy holiday read with a world that you are guaranteed to fall in love with, this is probably the book for you. If there's one thing I can guarantee with Stephanie Garber is that you will feel that magic and that whimsy when you are reading one of her books. This is Air by Sabata here, and it does fall into the YA romantasy category, but I think there's maybe potentially a little bit of sci-fi in here as well, which is exciting and mixing things up a bit. We have 3 leads in this book with hugely different backgrounds, it seems. Hayes is an orphan, Saoirse is an outcast, and Quill is a prince. So yeah, very, very different backgrounds. With the varying motivators of how they have very differently experienced life and the way that they've grown up, we get to follow them on missions that they are hoping to succeed in and then see how those weave together. The orphan Ace seems to be fueled by both vengeance and the love of her people, but there's some kind of misstep and she lands herself in an inescapable prison. And then we have the outcast, who is Saoirse, who committed some kind of unforgivable crime and has been banished from everything that she knows and loves. But she has this unique skill set of being able to track where magic came from, and so I think that she's going to be asked to use that to hunt down a worse criminal than her from whatever she did that got her into this position. And of course we have Quill the prince, although it doesn't seem like he's all that thrilled about his position in life. It doesn't seem like he is exactly excited to take on the throne. But in this book, it seems like a new enemy is going to make itself known, and so he is going to have to decide if he can sort of set his grievances aside to be the leader that his people need at this time. There's not really an inkling in the synopsis of how these 3 leads come together and how they might help or hurt each other's missions, but I kind of love that. It definitely makes it feel like anything's possible, so I am going into this with the hope that the found family trope will be in there, because no matter how much I read the found family trope, I never fail to just absolutely love it. But I'm also really interested in seeing where our orphan and outcast end up, like if they're able to find a more permanent home, and if that permanent home might be with royalty, like Quill in whatever type of like maybe castle he lives in. And of course my hope as a found family lover is that they all live happily ever after together. The Dagger and the Flame by Catherine Doyle is the first book in the City of Phantom YA Enemies to Lovers series. Now, as a surprise to no one, enemies to lovers is one of my favorite tropes, so throw that into a fantasy world and I'm immediately hooked. And this one even has an extra oomph added to it because our 2 leads are rival assassins pitted against each other. So in this world, there are 2 rival entities called the Cloaks and the Daggers who use something called shade magic, which does sound like dark magic to me. Our female main character, Seraphine or Sarah, joins the Cloaks after she suffers this like really tragic familial loss, and so she is out for revenge for sure. And then on the flip side, our male main character's name is Ransom, and he's not just like in the Daggers, he's the heir to the Daggers. But when Ransom meets Sarah, he finds out that she has this kind of magic that it seems like he's never seen or heard of. I'm definitely getting like magical Romeo and Juliet vibes in the best way. I'm curious to see if the 2 of them will end up working together and maybe even like uniting the Cloaks and the Daggers, or if this is going to take like a more tragic turn where it's survival of the fittest and only one can make it. Now, our last 3 books are all early 2025 releases, so they're either out already or will be hitting shelves soon. And the first one we've got here is Capitana by Cassandra James. Now, this is the first in its duology, and it's particularly out for my heartstrings because it's a YA romantasy with pirates. Our lead female main character is named Shamina, and she has spent nearly her entire life at this academy to become a pirate hunter. But even though she's put in the work and is very clearly dedicated, there's some people who still don't want her to succeed because of her reputation, or rather her family's reputation. Because as it turns out, her parents were actually pirates, and they were found out, they were branded as traitors, and they were gotten rid of because of this. An opportunity does present itself to Shamina to prove herself and her skill set and her loyalty when a legendary pirate comes and captures the Empire's queen. Shamina will finally be inducted into this pirate hunting order if she completes her mission of returning the queen home safely. There is of course a twist though, and the twist is a man named Dante who's been given the exact same mission, and only one of them will be awarded the prize. So as the two of them set out onto this adventure, we'll have to see which one succeeds, or if by some happy twist of fate, they both do. Second to last is A Language of Dragons by S.F. Williamson, and if the word dragon doesn't excite you as much as it does for me, then I bet these next pieces will. It's a standalone historical YA romantasy. The setting is dark academia, and the romance is described as clandestine, slow burn, enemies to lovers. Sold. Right? So this takes us back to 1923 London, where we meet Vivian, who is a type A rule follower with goals of acquiring an internship to study dragon languages and protecting her little sister. But her life is flipped 180 when her parents are suddenly arrested and her sister goes missing, and the only lifeline she sees is this mysterious job opportunity, so she takes it and then finds out that she is now a dragon language codebreaker for the war going on. If she succeeds as a codebreaker, then all is well. She gets to go home, her family gets to go home. The problem though is if she doesn't succeed, then it seems like all of their lives are going to be cut short. And as she starts to learn more about the war and her job and the language of dragons, she starts to realize that everything she's known might not be exactly as it seems, and she has to decide what part she's willing to play in the war itself. And all of that leads us to our last book right here. This is The Rose Bargain by Sasha Payton Smith. This is a YA alternate history romantasy that has been described as the Cruel Prince meets the Selection, so it is no surprise that I'm already highly invested. Similarly to A Language of Dragons, we are going back in time to England, but in this one, everyone in the kingdom gets to bargain with the immortal Fae Queen. And notice that I said they get to bargain with and they don't get a gift from. The girls from high society are expected to focus on obtaining qualities that will help them find a good husband. So one might offer up her ability to taste and then in return receive like a perfect smile. Or one might bargain away her happiest childhood memory to now be able to play the piano beautifully. But when our female main character Ivy finally makes it to her debut season, there's a twist. The queen has set up a competition, and whoever wins this competition wins her son, the Fae Prince's heart. Ivy wants to win the competition because it could save her family and free her sister from whatever bargain she agreed to, because it kind of ended up destroying her somehow. But the competition is not simple, and it seems like it's going to push Ivy to her extremes. And that is it for today's haul. Be sure to drop in the comments below whatever you're currently reading, as well as which books from this haul you're adding to your TBR. And be sure to follow Epic Reads for more epic book hauls, and we will see you in the next one. Bye!